KP's Video News. It's KP's Video News, y'all. It's KP's Video News, y'all.
That's right, it's KP's Video News. And it's like when you start checking out, getting information and receiving information from all over the globe, you'll discover one thing, that the song remains the same, boy. I don't care where you go. It's the same story all over the world, but the times are about to change, and so it's like the same thing that goes on here in the United States is actually happening in the United Kingdom as well, and so the racism faced by teenagers in the UK, and thousands of people took part in Black Lives Matter protests in the UK in recent months, not just in solidarity with black people in the United States following the murder of George Floyd, but also standing against racism in the UK. However, some people in the UK may assume that racism is not a big issue in Britain as it is in the United States, but research suggests otherwise. With a team of research assistants, we investigated teenagers' personal experiences of victimism and the effects this had on their health and well-being. The young people we worked with were all from Midlands region of England, encountered racism and discrimination at school, on social media, and in their wider community. The research findings show that racism sadly remains an issue for young people in British society. In their school experiences, teenagers reported experiencing racism from both peers and teachers at school. For example, Muslim girls told us about their headscarves being pulled off by fellow pupils, and a teacher and a teenager told us that he was kicked frequently when playing football at school. That's soccer to us, and that excuse me, he was a target of racial abuse. They told us the effects this had on their well-being. People described her hair falling out because of the anxiety experienced from being a victim of racial abuse. These young people said their schools did not adequately address the racist bullying. They felt that some of the teachers favored white students and did not fairly distribute punishment when racist incidents occurred. Some people moved schools as a result of unresolved racial abuse. Most teachers in the UK are white, and the failings reported by the teenagers were heard from may stem from their teachers being inadequately trained on issues of racism and unaware of their white bias. Teachers from ethnic minority groups are unrepresented in our education system, especially in leadership positions. The lack of diversity in the teaching workforce is, as well as failures in the curriculum, have been suggested as contributing factors to the underachievement of black Caribbean pupils in schools. Young people in our study felt that schools did not teach about racism and associated issues enough. The wider community, the teenagers in the study reported that they had experienced racism in their wider community. They told us that friends with foreign-sounding surnames had struggled to gain part-time employment until they changed their surnames on application forms and got straight through to interview. Other research has shown that minority ethnic people in the UK have to complete significantly more job applications than their white counterparts in order to get a job. Based on these findings, it is not a surprise that a black person is more likely to be unemployed than a white person. Young people in our study also talked about experiencing racism, which ranged from verbal abuse to being chased and also physically attacked. Alarmingly, they mentioned weapons being carried and used in such confrontations. They also talked about noticing racist graffiti, including Nazi symbols on community buildings. Teenagers in the study did not feel that the police did enough to combat racism. Research was conducted 20 years after the inquiry report into the police response to the murder of a black teenager, Stephen Lawrence. The report determined police practice in this case is institutionally racist and recommended measures to improve police practice. Nevertheless, the fact that black people are far more likely to be stopped and searched than white people is evidence that racial bias continues in the police. The social media front. Young people in the research described seeing racism and discrimination in social media posts. For example, one college student talked about reading negative comments on a community Facebook page about Eastern Europeans being thieves. Another talked about noticing racist posts from their relatives on Facebook. They felt the media platforms needed to do better at addressing racism rather than making it worse. The extent to which racism is perpetuated on social media is a concern. During the coronavirus pandemic, increasing numbers of people have relied on social media to connect and keep in touch with others. It has been suggested by community members that racist comments on social media have increased following the local lockdown imposed on the city. The rise in coronavirus cases in the city has been inappropriately blamed by someone on the city's ethnic minority population. The young people in the study gave some suggestions for addressing racism, including the use of social media to educate on racism and better school education. Better education is vital. The UK school curriculum doesn't acknowledge the full impact of colonialization. This has been criticized by anti-racism campaigners, and the campaign, the Black Curriculum, for instance, calls for Black history to be included in the curriculum. The accounts of young people in our study suggest that significant change is still needed in the UK to address race inequality and racism. So, as I said prior to starting this read, is that the same things that exist in the United States are the same things that happening in the UK, in the United Kingdom, and so it's just one of those real serious situations that's going on. So they're actually having Black Lives Matter protests in England, and basically all over the world, as a matter of fact. And so they're also removing statues that had like a slavery heritage, and the UK is and they're removing those little by little, just like they're removing the racist Confederate statues here in the United States. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. I'm telling you, it's like things are going on that level. So now I'm gonna try to switch over to a couple of positive stories to end this session here. And so there's a black billionaire, and Adobe paid $3 billion for his cloud software. And African American billionaire Robert Smith, founder and CEO of Vista Equity Partners, made a big bet when he paid $1.8 billion for the cloud service company Marketo. Well, that bet has significantly played off because he just sold Marketo to Adobe Systems Incorporated for $4.75 billion, which he earned a profit of $3 billion, the largest acquired profit from a single company in the last 20 years. Wow. A former Goldman Sachs investment banker who was the first to focus on billion-dollar technology mergers and acquisitions, Smith ventured into his own equity firm called Vista Equity Partners back in 2000 to invest exclusively in software companies. Many have been skeptical about his idea, saying that at the time it was impossible to succeed in that field because target companies had no assets to lend against. Smith, however, continued with his business, and since then, people saw Vista becoming a very successful private equity firm, and Smith becoming the wealthiest African American along the way. And in 2016, Vista closed a deal to buy Marketo for $1.8 billion. It was a relatively richly priced acquisition, noting that Marketo, a marketing automation software company, was then failing to grow and was losing a lot of money. But under Smith's leadership, Marketo's revenue grew to over $100 million within only 3 years. Adobe, a leading provider of graphics and video software and services, became very much interested in Marketo. Last month, Adobe announced that they would incorporate Marketo into its Adobe Experience Cloud platform. The acquisition will enable Adobe to offer an unrivaled set of solutions for delivering transformative customer experiences across industries and companies of all sizes, according to the press release. The recent acquisition is just one of many deals made by Vista's founder, chairman, and CEO Robert Smith. However, the 61-year-old businessman was ranked by Forbes as the 226th richest person in America in 2017, and 668th on Forbes 2016 list of the world's billionaires. With a net worth of $4.4 billion, he was also named by Forbes as one of the 100 greatest living business minds, and was declared as the wealthiest African American in 2018 story on Forbes. So that's Robert Smith, the wealthiest African American, the wealthiest black man in the world. Well, is that in the world or in the United States? Well, the wealthiest African American with a net worth of $4.4 billion. So congratulations there, Mr. Smith. And that's amazing, man. That's amazing. Richer than Oprah. Let's see. So we have a black lawyer who refused to cut his dreadlocks to make his colleagues feel better. And that's a cool story. You have Marcus Shute Jr., a 34-year-old lawyer from Nashville, raised a few eyebrows when he decided to grow his locks in 2002. But he still refuses to cut his hair in hopes to make a point that his personal appearances should not affect his professional career. In fact, Shute is a well-sought-after lawyer, and he runs his own law firm in Nashville, Tennessee. Many times during his matriculation through undergrad law school and in my professional career, I was told I would not be successful as an attorney if I didn't cut my locks, Shute said in an interview. Shute also said he had experience being disregarded for promotion, even though he technically deserved it because he did not fit the look. At one time, he said a judge even mistook him as a client instead of a law student. Despite that, he chose to be authentic and not conform to the industry's so-called standards. His experiences also inspired him to open his own law practice, and he wanted most of his colleagues and clients to relate to him. The law industry, like any other industry, is a microcosm of the real world. It needs acceptance, inclusion, and diversity, but it needs to be more than empty lip service and to be done in a meaningful way, he said. Less than 5% of attorneys in the United States are black, and even fewer are in a position to hire at their firm. One of the reasons he founded Shute Law. And that's, you check him out at shutelaw.com. That's www.shutelaw.com. In case you need a good lawyer. That's a young brother out there, 34 years old, got his own law firm. So there's a couple of good stories there. And hey, got to keep the, sometimes you just got to fight the power, man, because they'll try to keep you down, put that glass ceiling up, and try to keep you from advancing trying to make big issues out of nothing, man, when they really should be addressing what you know up here, what your mental state is.
It's KP's Video News, y'all.